Hi there, I'm Richard Hill, the host of Ecom at One, and welcome to episode 191. Now, in this episode, I speak with Michaela Wessels, CEO at Style Arcade. With over 15 years experience in fashion and e-commerce retail, Michaela now heads up Style Arcade, working with merchants all around the world. In this episode, myself and Michaela chat using AI and tech for assortment planning, becoming a better buyer in the retail world, using sizing to your advantage in merchandise planning. We talk inclusion in fashion and Michaela's predictions for retailers over the coming months. And of course, so much more in this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic episode. Hi, Michaela. How are you doing?
Hi, Richard. So well. How are you?
I'm really good. Welcome to the Ecom at One podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
No problem at all. Looking forward to getting stuck in. But before we do, I think it'd be great for you to introduce yourself and how you got into the world of e-commerce.
Right. Well, I'm the founder of Style Arcade Software, which actually comes from my background in merchandise planning and buying for 15 years. So I worked across some of Australia, South Africa, UK, some of the largest retailers, and realized that I couldn't do my job the way I wanted to be able to. So yes, headed into the world of becoming an accidental tech founder. And here we are, obviously 6 years later with Style Arcade, and very grateful for everything it's kind of become, and just, excited to share that today.
So I always like to hear the stories of, especially in SaaS, for example, I think what we're saying is, you worked in an industry and spotted an opportunity to explore and to sort of from your previous roles. And then here you are sort of 6 years later with a very successful SaaS software. But it's, I'm quite excited to hear more about Style Arcade. Maybe just give us a little glimpse into what it is that Style Arcade does.
Yeah, sure. So it's an analytics platform for fashion brands and retailers. And essentially what it does is it brings together all of your product data into one source and allows you to make better product decisions. But the key one being, how much do you buy? Because brands and retailers, this is the hardest question to answer. So how much do you buy of each product? How many in each size? And where do you send it to? Are all the things that Style Arcade helps the teams with.
That, I mean, just that sentence that you said there, I think, it's like the bane of most store owners when they look at their balance sheet and they think, do you know what? We've got 5% sat in the warehouse that we are never going to sell. We've got the wrong sizes. We've got the wrong colors. We've got so much cash tied up in stock, and it's an ever-changing market, potentially, different seasons. There's so many factors, you're solving a big problem in the industry. I would imagine that there's a lot of very, very happy clients.
Well, Richard, you make me laugh when you say 5%, because unfortunately it's a lot larger than that sitting in the warehouse. It'll never sell, right? But there's everyone talks about inventory management as this hot topic that we all need to be all over our inventory management. But I almost have a counteractive point to that, which is inventory management is the result of poor buying decisions in the first place. We shouldn't get to the point where we're desperate for some kind of inventory management. We really should be making better decisions right at the beginning of this cycle. So, yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
So maybe step me through then. Obviously your tech will handle a lot of the stuff, but I'm an e-com store owner. I'm not. I'm assuming I am. I was for many years.
Yeah.
And that problem of what to buy, obviously your tech sort of takes a lot of that pain away. But if I'm sitting here listening to this episode as an e-com store owner doing $20-30 million a year, and I'm in apparel, which has got its very unique or a lot of challenges with sizes and colors and fittings and things like that. What are some of the things I should be doing to really sort of reduce the issues that I'm having with overstock, over ordering, getting a lot of returns? That's quite a big question, actually. There's a lot of things there.
That's great.
I'll see how you...
You've kind of described one of the perfect places to start with Style Arcade, which is, you're a growing brand. You've hit 30 million at this point. And one of the brands that joined us, they joined when they were turning over about 25 million. They're now over 500 million per annum in GMV. 2.5 years later, these guys have crushed it. And what they did was really just get obsessed about their product. So if I was using Style Arcade to advise you on your e-commerce business, the first thing we do is connect all the data. Then have a look at the supply and the demand, right? So Richard's going off buying all sorts of different apparel products, and he may not know what the supply is of tops versus the demand for tops in his business. So this was the actual pure example we had with this customer. And the demand for tops was double what was being supplied. So that's easy. We just double the investment in tops, but like what tops? So then you go a
Yeah.
little bit layer deeper, and Style Arcade will have a look at subcategory and point out that it's crop tops. Great. So by double the amount of crop tops, you can even go further. It was white crop tops, which was a 6-figure opportunity for these guys in that single year. And then, most businesses, I guess, if I were to make an assumption on Richard Hill's e-commerce business, your accuracy on how you buy the sizes will be around 80%. And
Mm,
really, if you can get over 90, you're saving a ton of profitability and revenue.
mm,
So Style Arcade will just recommend which sizes to purchase based on the demand in your customer base.
mm. Clever
Yeah,
stuff.
it is clever stuff. Yeah. But I think, Richard, the merchandise planning principles, it's mathematics, but then you combine
Mm,
the mathematics with this art and science so that you can put these two together and actually have a brilliantly performing business that you
mm.
have full visibility on how your products are performing and why they perform the way they do.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say clever stuff, but also very simple in one respect. You've
Yeah.
got, you're getting to that maybe 9.5 out of 10, but trying to get to that as close to 10 out of 10 on the ordering. That's where it gets, really challenging, I think.
That's
You've
it.
looked at the sizing, or you've looked at the colors, you looked at the sizing, and you've predicted. But, but can you really predict sort of the change? Like a lot of different body sizes. I know you guys do quite a lot around the sizing and size calculators, which I think is a critical part of most e-com stores now. I'm a big guy. I'm actually 6'7", which is obviously pretty tall. A lot of brands, they're double XL in one brand. It's very different, obviously, as we know in other brands. A lot of the US brands fit me quite well. A lot of
Yeah.
Italian brands don't fit me at
No.
all. It's like it's been sprayed on. So, what sort of advice would you give to guys, that are listening, and owners around this sort of sizing, using calculators, using tech to help with that sizing piece?
Well, Richard, it was when I was in merchandise planning, it was the biggest bane of my existence to try and calculate which sizes to purchase, especially for a large product range, multiple stores.
Mm,
And with booming e-commerce brands, they're gaining thousands of new customers, sometimes in a week. So you can imagine this group of customers and their sizing preferences is changing constantly. So you need to be able to keep up with that. And you can't run it in business intelligence tools and spreadsheets. It's just impossible. You have to have algorithms driving those recommendations. So that's a big part of it. And I think a lot of brands don't realize, I'm passionate about sizing, but also size inclusivity. A lot of them don't realize the market share that's available in being size inclusive. And I think
yeah,
what we've seen historically, which is a little sad, is that brands go gung ho into size inclusivity
yeah,
and then huge investment behind it, and then very quickly decide that there's excess in sizes, this ROI is not paying off, let's pull out. So I think if you take a measured approach, use the data, use AI and algorithms, you're in a much better
yeah.
place.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. When I look at the different retailers that I just buy from, and obviously the ones that we work with, and some of them do it very well, but some of them just don't do it at all. And the big retailers, I just think, gosh, you're just missing a trick. Obviously everybody knows that returns is the bane of everyone's lives as a retailer, as a merchant, and if you're not trying to reduce those, and obviously that's just one way to
Yeah.
reduce them, but if you're not using some tech, and I mean, I quite like obviously being. Actually, no, I won't go there. I was going because I quite often go to certain brands knowing full well that they'll have a lot of my size left. So I'm
Yes.
when a lot of people are obviously buying, say the more normal sizes, shall we say? I'm a bigger guy, so I'm at
The
this
ones on the
end of
bell
sizing.
curve. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm the guy that's looking for your overstock, maybe because you can't sell your 3XL and your extra tall. So I come in and swoop up the bargains,
Richard,
other
this is you and
sizes.
me because I'm 5'2", so I'm swooping
Yeah.
up the extra smalls as well, because I know there's always going to be a
Mm,
miscalculation somewhere, but there shouldn't
yeah.
be. There really shouldn't be.
I literally, I mean, it's literally a store that I go to. I mean, this is actually a physical store, and I drive. It's not near my house. It's a big brand, one of the biggest brands in the world. I drive there maybe twice a year, and I'll spend about, I shouldn't say this actually on the podcast, but quite a lot of money, should we say? you know, and I'll just say, right, can you get me every single pair of trousers you have in the store that's this size, and every shirt that you've got in this size, and I'll literally just try them on, and if I like them, I buy.
Yeah.
But they're always like discounted so heavily because of the size. They've got usually have quite a lot left. But so
Yeah.
I
Do
think
you want me to tell you, if it's of interest, exactly why that problem's so hard for these retailers to get right?
yeah,
It's because when you go into a store and it's sold out of a size, you never know how much you could have sold if you'd been in stock. So what
yeah,
happens is, very quickly, when you're just guessing at the size curve or have applied basic maths to it, you very quickly run out of sizes, and all of these out of stocks just skew all the data across
yeah,
all of the
yeah.
stores. So you
They're
just
just
never know.
flatlined, so you don't know what they
Yeah.
could have been. Yeah, yeah.
Self-fulfilling
What you could have
prophecy.
had, what you could have won. Yeah,
What you could have
yeah.
won. Yeah, that's it.
So, what advice would you give then to retailers that are listening now that really want to grow in today's climate? What's your sort of one big bit of advice you'd give to them?
I think if you had to think about it very simplistically, most retailers and brands know of only two ways to grow, right? You spend more money on marketing or you buy more product. And there seems to be a lot of tech to help us know what to do with marketing, a lot of expertise out there. There's not a lot of tech to help us know how much to buy in product. And I think getting that right is essential. So there are lots of ways to grow, and I've always believed that hidden in product data, there are about 8 different growth levers. But I'll give you my favorite. My favorite is the 80-20 principle. So if you consider that 20% of your range will deliver 80% of your revenue, and then invest to that. Now, this makes most people uncomfortable. You say, well, then 20% of your styles need 80% of your investment in inventory.
Yeah,
And people go, no, I can't do that. Most brands would buy 100 styles and place 100 units in each. That's just natural instinct. Spread your
mm,
bets. But if you were to double down on your winners, that's where you get the leaps towards growth. So what
mm,
we usually see is, if a brand is placing 100 styles in 100 units each, at least 20 of those styles will have sold out within the week.
yeah,
Just 20
yeah,
of them, and could have had 5 to 10x the volume that they were placed in. And that's my biggest lever. If you get
mm.
those best sellers and you back them with the right investment and depth, you're making leaps towards growth.
So, I mean, that sounds quite obvious to me. No,
Right.
but yeah, it sounds quite obvious that there's more certain sizes that are obviously going to sell a lot more of. Obviously, I don't know if there is an average size that a certain population is, and whether that's you're going to double down or 5 times down on a certain size or three, and then the larger sizes and the smaller sizes you're going to do your normal. I'm a massive believer in the 80-20 principle. That goes without saying. But
Yeah.
why don't people do that? Why don't people do that? Because it just sounds quite straightforward. The sizes, whether that's the sizes in the middle that the larger amount of the population are, whether that's I don't know, a size 10, 12, 14, that's the 60% of the population, and maybe, I don't know the numbers. So why do buyers get it so wrong? Because I think they do seem to get it so wrong. Or is it just they're not allowed from a lot of the manufacturers to order more of the more popular sizes? So they're not getting allocation. They're not very good negotiators. Why are they not doing it?
Well, actually, Michael, it's the styles. 80% of the styles will make, 20% of the styles will make 80% of the revenue.
Got you.
So firstly, they're nervous to pick the 20% because they don't know what the
Yeah.
20% are.
Which
And I
which
remember
about?
this feeling because I had only spreadsheets and BI tools to rely on to try and predict which ones are the 20 that are going to kill it. So Style Arcade was an absolute game changer for me personally, which is why we developed it. But to do my own job, the ability to see visually what's working for the customer, what are they telling us in the data, and then what attributes about the products do they love, to be able to pick these kind of repeatable attributes that win for you often. Backing the winners. And then with the sizing, it's just too damn hard to go and flick around with size curves by product, by category, by store. It's a labyrinth that only a single person in a business would ever do, the merchandise planner or the data analyst. And yeah, like I say, the spiky problem of having those out of stocks means you never have the right information to begin
Yeah.
with.
So there's quite a lot of pressure on these buyers, isn't there, to get it right?
So much.
Yeah,
So much.
yeah. So when they get it right, they're like, yay. But when they've got whatever 400 grand sat in the warehouse because they got it wrong with the style, the weather changed, the fashion changed, somebody posted this different style on Instagram, and all of a sudden they haven't got any of those. And yeah, a lot of pressure, isn't it?
A lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. I remember a really nice story, actually. One of the brands we were working with, they had a seeming disaster. They had sold all of their wholesale for the season, and one of their major retailers canceled their entire order. And we thought, no, we will never move through this inventory. But what was amazing is we took it back into the warehouse, and because we had the additional additional inventory, we were able to 3-4x our revenue, and we'd had no idea before that we could actually do more revenue than. But it takes some of these acts of nature to bring about these insights if you don't have the right tools.
I'm getting sort of cold sweats and memories from. I used to do this, not in clothing, but in computer components. And when you get it right, it's a beautiful thing. You're like, yeah, oh yeah, we just sold all the gear and we've just timed it right. But then when you get it wrong, obviously, it's quite a painful exercise, isn't it? Especially if you're employed somewhere and it might be your last week in the job. But so,
you know what's funny though, Richard, on that, components selling out and things moving really fast.
yeah,
When we speak to brands and retailers, the thing that hurts them the most is not the inventory sitting in the warehouse. The thing that really hits them is having their bestsellers sell out in days and not knowing how much they should have bought of those bestsellers. That's actually where their pain begins. So I think just being able to quantify those upfront orders properly and know your true demand is a big deal for them.
Yeah, yeah. So let's say they're using some of your tech. They've got more of an insight. They're an experienced buyer in terms of the quantity. And they're getting that. They're getting better at that. They're using insights. They're using data. They're using Style Arcade, etc. But then they've still got to then negotiate a good deal. Ultimately, I think I've always. My father was bought and sold all sorts of things, and I was brought up buying and selling and he always said, and I think a lot of people say it, but you make your money when you buy something.
So true.
Yeah,
True.
so I know we used to watch my father buy houses and cars and tractors and land and all sorts of crazy stuff, and grew up around this from as a child. And negotiating ultimately is something that's been drilled into me, and I now have drilled that into my kids, and it's just normal for them to walk into a clothes store or they know we'll go shopping. We will not pay. We will always ask for a discount, sort of thing.
That's good.
But obviously, as a buyer, what would you say? What sort of advice would you give to them around how to negotiate better?
I think, Richard, negotiation is one part of a toolkit that a buyer needs to have. Absolutely. But I think there's a lot more to be gained. You come into a business and sure, you can go and negotiate with the factories for better prices. Quite often that leads you to poorer quality outcomes of your product, which can hurt you more. So I think when we ask those two questions, which potentially are a little short-sighted, is like, how do we get people to either pay more for our product or get our factory to give it to us at a lesser cost to try and increase the first margin? That's all good and well, but there's actually a lot to be gained on just selling that item at full price. And if we understood what makes a customer buy our item at full price versus having to discount it? Because most brands, their average discounting rate across the year is a 25% discount on all of their products. That's a lot of discount. So
Mm,
if we could just gain back, 5 points there, we'd be in such a better place. So my advice is always, explore what you can do with factory and your retail price, but there's a lot to be gained on full price sales and understanding that
mm,
deeply as to how you gain those customers.
mm, mm.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think, yeah, I'm not saying it's all about obviously trying to get the best deal, to trying to absolutely screw people down, but ultimately, I think you can use sort of levers around, or what would you say? You've got the AI, you've got the tech that's going to predict better. So then you can forward plan and forecast, and you can forecast with these factories, with these suppliers, and demonstrate, a forward order or, order, several, whatever it may be, millions of or thousands of over a period of time. Obviously, that you can use that as a lever, can you not, to then get
Yeah.
obviously a better price if you're ordering 10 times as much over a year as opposed to a single order or five.
Yeah. And Richard, that's a great gain as well, because if you think about most fashion businesses or apparel businesses, round about 20% of their range would be evergreen product that lives all year round. Those items should be uber high margin for you. And I think a lot of buyers can tend to look at the new shiny thing and not go and look for those bread and butter items that are delivering
Mm,
year on year. So I think when I look at the Style Arcade data, and we've got over 120 brands and retailers on the platform turning over more than $5 billion. If you think about all of that data, and it's 26% of styles delivering 43% of revenue. Those are the money spinners. That's where you want to put some focus and
mm,
where you really
mm.
want to negotiate on volumes.
Yeah, yeah, no, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? A big difference.
Yeah.
So maybe step me through I know I can see obviously you've got a lot of big brands on the site, and I know you've worked with a lot of different brands, but what's been, maybe step me through and step our listeners through, maybe a more recent piece of work or a client that you've worked with where you've sort of implemented your tech, whether that's to do with sizing, whether that's to do with the forecasting, that's helped a retailer recently.
I think one of the more recent surprise and delights moments that I've seen is we're currently working with a large sportswear brand, and the team is like 100 strong, and they've never been able to get down to analyzing color performance or subcategory performance or even sleeve length, neckline, silhouette, all of those things. So putting in Style Arcade and allowing them to see what is your performance by color, what is your performance by neckline, they were just blown away by all of these insights. It was really exciting for them to see. And then the buyers are armed with all of this amazing information on how to do their jobs better. So that was really exciting, because you can imagine it's a bit of grind work to go and take an image of a product and say, well, that's a V-neck, it's long sleeve, it's dark blue. Like, humans shouldn't have to do that. So just
Yeah.
let the AI do it for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we mentioned AI a few times, but where do you see it going on the AI and on the AI side over this next 12 months? I think, every tech partner, every tech brand that we work with, talk to on the podcast with all of our clients, obviously AI is at the forefront of most SaaS's, tech partners, platform, actual e-com store platforms. Obviously some of the things we've even touched on now, what you can do with the AI to predict, what you can do with the AI on size. It's just incredible. I'm spending so much time just playing with stuff. I say playing, but a lot more than playing. But, where do you see it going with this kind of thing?
It's interesting because AI is such a buzzword and a hot topic specifically for retail. It's funny because we were speaking to a number of brands and they all say, well, please say you do AI because my director won't approve technology that's not AI. And you think, if you'd had to go and talk to that director and say, what do you want this AI to do for you in fashion retail? They cannot tell you. They can't tell you. But
Mm,
what it can do, I mean, from our experience, and I just actually posted something on LinkedIn about my favorite uses for AI in fashion tech. And it's speed to market, and it's taking the grind away from your team. Let's just begin there as a big win. So I think some of the fun use cases is like the earlier example, advanced product attribution. That can all be automated. No one has to go and label dark short sleeve V-neck t-shirts anymore. Allows your customer to search that on site easier. Also allows you to really quickly analyze performance by all of these more advanced attributes. And then cannibalization, Richard, if you think about in fashion retail, if you have large ranges, sometimes you'll sit there and the team will go, how did we end up, you're looking at current trade, how did we end up in June with 5 dresses that do exactly the same job for this customer at 5 different price points? So having AI help you instantly spot cannibalization in your future ranges so you'd never make those
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yeah.
And then one last one is the sizing. Just not have to ever think about how many sizes to place for a particular style. That's a win.
Yeah. It's huge, isn't it? It's just huge. It's just like that sizing piece. Everybody we speak to, we've probably got 50 plus apparel brands as clients. The sizing piece, the returns, the RMAs. It's good times, I think, at the moment. Well, we're in a good sort of almost like a sweet spot of being able to close that gap and the tech for good to help. It's a good thing, a really good thing. Yeah, exciting. You must be obviously when clients come on board or you speak to retailers, brands for the first time, and they may be not using anything too much, so using pen and paper maybe, or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, and you guys jump in there and show them some of the stuff you're doing, but obviously some of the stuff that's coming down the line as well. It's very exciting.
It's super exciting. I think also my favorite thing, Richard, is that the brands grow, right? You've got these really amazing brands that are able to achieve their full growth potential, which
Yeah.
you have to have data to do that. Yeah, and I think you're talking about sizing, and it is definitely one of my favorite topics, but no one cares much about it. We see the problems in sizing for sure,
Yeah.
and if you think about the number one shopper complaint, I can't find my size. Surely that's a problem we
Mm,
have to solve
mm,
for them.
mm,
Yeah,
mm. I think it's probably half the planet, isn't it? Can't find maybe, I don't know, there are a lot. I know
yeah,
all my family are like 6'7", so it's a problem. All my cousins, my uncles, my aunties, they're all, we're all very large, and that's just one example. But there's obviously, there's it mind boggles the problems that people have, especially obviously online, getting the wrong sizes. It's just sort of
yeah,
taken for granted that we're going to order extra and then send one back, which is just terrible for the industry,
that
terrible
too.
for the planet, full stop. So this sort of size inclusivity then, um, where do you see that going? What do you think brands should do more of around the inclusivity piece around size?
I think undoubtedly there's market share to be gained, which I think a lot of brands are perhaps doing size inclusivity for the wrong reasons.
Mm,
Maybe it's where as brands you're kind of looked to set the tone for culture as well, and it could be let's do it for a greenwashing effect, or those are the wrong reasons to do it. I think using the data to tell you whether you could be more size inclusive and whether your customer is demanding it is the
mm,
key, because
mm,
ultimately at the end of the day, how it doesn't benefit any brand who's it's a business at the end of the day. It doesn't benefit them to range additional sizes on the fringe of their size range for customers that aren't there to buy it. You have to know that before you do it. So I think my advice would always be to first use the data, identify whether you have the demand,
mm,
then invest slowly and incrementally to make sure that the demand is growing, and keep backing it up. So yeah,
mm,
we actually had a customer come to us once and say, we want Style Arcade because we know that we've got opportunity in larger sizes because we get this anecdotal feedback from customer service. And then when we actually analyzed the data, it was the complete opposite. They had the opportunity on the smaller end. More than 30% of their revenue was coming from an extra small. So you can easily see that
mm.
the bell curve is all skew. You need an extra small in that case.
Yeah.
So just very interesting how brands see this and their different motivations for doing it.
This is the thing. I mean, ultimately, what are, you know, I guess I'm thinking like sustainability, inclusivity. People unfortunately do it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah,
Quite a lot of the time. So it's an interesting. What's the word I'm looking for? It's an interesting discussion, really. Ultimately, doing things for the right reasons, but at the same respect, you want to run a profitable, successful
business.
business. So, but it's doing really, if it's my business, you want to be doing the right thing and building a business that you're proud of, and that people want to buy from. But it's also can be a, like sustainability, greenwashing, this sort of thing, which a lot of people, seem to be unfortunately jumping on. But yeah, it's a difficult conversation, even
It
that people
is,
doing it for the
yeah.
right reason. Yeah,
But I think what consumers are putting a lot of pressure on brands to be size inclusive. But if you don't have a quantum of customers that need that size, you shouldn't be providing it. So
yeah,
I think that's about analyzing your customer base. That's
mm
my best suggestion,
yeah,
and
yeah.
understanding the data.
Cool. So maybe tell me a bit more about some of the other functionality and features of Style Arcade.
Well, one of the favorites, and people underestimate how important this is the visual nature of how Style Arcade actually operates. So we're dealing with merchandise buyers, planners, marketers, e-commerce managers. These humans, and even you and I, we're all visual creatures. We need to see our product alongside our data so that we can actually see what the customer's seeing. And I think so many traditional tools that have been in this industry have all been spreadsheet based, SKU based. How do you make product decisions on a SKU number? It always baffled me. So that was my biggest issue in retail, which I wanted to solve. So yeah, it's a very visual tool, Richard. And if you think about, we've got 100 and something odd brands and retailers on the platform. We've got 6,000 global users. That's a lot of people
mm
in the
mm
retailer using it.
mm
And I think it's down to how delightful it is to use.
mm mm
And
mm.
actually it's smart too. So the more you get people to use it, the smarter and better trading decisions you have. So it's almost like a bit of a trick at the end of the day. Make it fun. Make it fun, and all of a sudden you're doing better business.
That sounds like the dream, doesn't it?
Now, you might be looking for an SEO boost, a down-to-earth digital PR campaign to share your story, or maybe just some straightforward technical help to amp up your performance. Now that's where Ecom Now comes in. A partner that's all about making things easier for your online store. Our services cover everything from creating professional content for your e-commerce categories to refining your product descriptions. Now, whether you're just starting out or have been in it for a while, we're here to deliver real impactful results that add to your bottom line without unnecessary commitments. You can order one-off or multiple projects with a quick turnaround. Simply choose what you need.
So obviously we've covered quite a bit of ground there. We talked a lot about sizing,
Yeah.
inclusivity, but what would you say are some of the other? We're sat here in 12 months' time. What are a couple of things that merchants should really be on the lookout for this next 12 months to get ahead? What are some of the trends, other trends? It can be anything that you're seeing, your successful clients that are embracing or they're about to embrace. What are a couple of other key things that you're seeing at the moment?
I think, Richard, that's the key because, we sit here and think, we know a lot about a particular topic and you want to, hypothesize about what the future is going to be. And I feel like there have been so many false prophecies of late. We were told, TikTok is going to take over Meta and, Web3 is the biggest thing, AI, but
Mm-hmm.
then there are no practical use cases. And so I think let's get down to basics and simplicity. What I've seen brands doing that I think they're having a lot of success with, or at least I can see in their numbers they are, investing in brand marketing over performance marketing. Controversial, but it is delivering. And the second thing I see them doing is really getting smart with their construction of their tech stack. No one's making a decision on technology that's going to lock them in. They want to be dynamic, agile. They want their systems to talk to one another. And they're really being particular about how they construct their tech stack, which makes them, have the ability to have greater speed to market, quicker implementation times.
Mm-hmm.
they're open to newer tech and stuff that is more innovative, versus going with the kind of bigger, more brand name technologies that will take you a year to implement.
Giving
Yeah.
them the sort of flexibility to be able to connect rather
Yeah.
than tying them into some sort of very
But what do you
difficult.
see with this brand marketing versus performance marketing? Because, as a brand business myself, it's hard to quantify the ROI on that brand marketing, but it's there. It's
Yeah,
there somehow.
yeah. I mean, we're seeing a shift more. Obviously, normal, if you like, sort of paid ads. A lot more firms investing more in brand. Yeah, yeah. We're definitely seeing a shift towards that. That's for sure. Yeah. But yeah, the tech stack. I think what tech to sort of back that was always the challenging one, isn't it? Because there's always a shiny object or two coming around the corner, depending on what conference
Yeah.
you've been to or who you're sort of backing. But I think, as you sort of alluded to, having a tech that is sort of you're able to integrate easily with other, it's not closed off, it's open. I
Yeah.
think is quite a key one. We see, we work with a lot of brands that, it's the nature of the game, I think, where they start as a small business, however many years ago, with somebody built something based on a friend of a friend, maybe, and then all of a sudden they're doing 20 million, 50 million, whatever it may be, and they just can't do much with that tech because they haven't got the resource or the so then they look to them re-platform or whether that's an actual platform, an e-com store platform, or whether that's an ERP, but they're making those decisions. I think a lot of people are quite short-sighted on some of those decisions because they'll make the decision. It might take a year to move it all over, and then actually we're now at 50 million a year or 100 million a year, and actually we can't the international side, we didn't think of that. So doing a real deep tech audit of what you have and making sure it's sort of more future-proof, and that's where you really need to sit down with somebody that knows what they're talking about and
Yeah.
do a proper tech audit and look at sort of what are the bigger aspirations for the company, for the brand.
You know
Yeah,
what I think might be a trend as well, and I'm hoping it will be, because everyone at the top end of town in retail and e-commerce, the big players are always looking for the monolith, the thing that does everything from end to end, and that I pay, six figures for, and it does take me a long time to implement. I think those technology companies are going to have a way to let you try it. They have to give you some kind of entry point to figure out if this is the right tech. Because who can
yeah,
sign a six-figure check
yeah,
without knowing if it fits into everything else in your
yeah,
ecosystem?
yeah.
Yeah,
It's a hell of a decision, isn't it? We see it all the
huge.
time. They've gone from 0 to 20 mil. Right, we need to re-platform. Right, we'll just pick this platform. I know it's not that straightforward, but it's like they're sort of backing a horse in effect.
Yes,
And then they
they
go,
pick and go.
actually, we didn't think of this, so we didn't think of that, and yeah, we actually need to re-platform again. Or yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. We have a lot of dialogue with brands, and we recommend obviously a lot of different tech to our listeners and to our obviously clients behind the podcast, our agencies.
Yeah.
But it is, it's an interesting conundrum, really. Of there's obviously a lot of good tech out there. So many good brands, so many good SaaS coming through. But
It's
I think
interesting to
it's
see because, as well, we can see in the data because we have to connect to all of this tech. So we see exactly what they're switching from and to. And it also depends on the geographic area. The
yeah,
returns platform that's popular in
yeah,
the United States is not the same as
yeah,
popular in the Southeast Asia. So I think it's very much it's a trend thing in each
mm,
location.
mm.
And then also you hope you've got the best tech, and you can only go by reviews and, peer advice as well.
So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. So I'm thinking peak season. This episode's going to go live. It's going to be sort of mid-July, and we're for a lot of apparel brands. We've talked about that a lot. Peaks of a few months away. We've obviously talked about sizing and forecasting. Using AI. But any sort of parting advice, other advice you would give to our merchants around peak?
I think, Richard, if you look at what are the important times in a retailer's year, it's important to get those events right, the planning and forecasting for those events, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, all those things. For a lot of retailers that we see, that can be 10 to 20% of their entire year's sales budget. So being able to plan for those is key. And if you neglect the rest of the year, you're almost okay. So I think really doubling down on the data analysis and post-mortem of these big, big sales events really puts you in a better position. And I would say when you look at, all of the kind of anecdotes that come out of those times, people say, oh, well, you're gaining, markdown customers if you're gaining customers during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. It's not always true. Like, you really need to look at your data from your customer base and what you were selling at the time. So I would always encourage people to just dig a bit deeper, to understand the numbers a bit more, because we're on a hamster wheel. We can't look at everything. Just look at the things that matter.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you, Michaela, for coming on the show.
No,
I like
thank
to
you,
end
Richard.
every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book to recommend to our listeners?
I'll give you one if you give me one.
Oh, okay.
Do you have one?
I have
I'll
so
go
many
first.
books. Let me think. I'm looking around my my office now because I have so many. I mean, I think there are so many books. I've had 200 recommendations, but personally, I think. Do you want me to go first?
Yes, I would love you to.
So I would say one of my favorite books is by an author called Eckhart Tolle,
Oh, yeah.
which is
Which one?
it's called The Power of Now.
Yes, it's magic. It's
Yeah,
magic.
and it's
Yes.
there's not many books I read 2-3 times or have on audio and listen to quite regularly, but I think just to be in the moment and to focus on what you're doing now, not to worry about what's maybe gone on and worry too much about the future or think too much about the future. I'm not saying don't plan for things, because absolutely you want to do that and have plans and things to look forward to. But I think we can spend so much time thinking about what's gone on and what might be in negative ways potentially. So I'm very much about being in the here and now, and I think that book just really resonates with me. And it's a book I'd recommend anybody, especially a lot of people that are listening to this will be in senior positions with maybe a little bit of pressure on them, or business owners. And I think it's just a really nice book that grounds people down to sort of what's really important in life.
Yeah. I loved that book. I like you, read it a few times. I also read his The New Earth.
New
Not
Earth.
as good as The Power of Now, but
Yeah.
incredible book. I loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So interesting. You and I sound like we have the same taste in books. But I'll give you my recommendation. It was actually more aligned to you. You're also a multiple founder of businesses, so you'll know what it takes to start something and the kind of resilience. And I think the one book that really gave me some groundbreaking principles to operate off was The Obstacle is the Way. And it was written by Ryan Holiday.
Holiday. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read it?
I've
You've
read,
read it.
I've dipped into it a few times, but I haven't read it all.
It must have been a moment that I needed it, because I
Yeah.
dove right into that book. And
Yeah.
just a lot of breakthroughs come from facing obstacles. It's like you get the
Yeah.
obstacle and you think, well, let's just go around it. No. Go
Yeah.
right at it. Really deeply understand this obstacle. It's been a lot of breakthroughs for me in understanding
Yeah.
the obstacle.
That's a great one. That is a great one. The more I think about our listeners, ultimately, you are going to get smacked in the face many times. It's just how it goes. How are you going to deal with it? How are you going to
Yeah.
prepare for it? How are you going to see it coming? Because it's going to come at some point. You're going to
Yeah.
navigate it. Are you going to take it head on? Are you going to, planning for what might be? It's like playing the game of chess, but trying to be that 20, 30 moves in front. And it's
But you're right
he's
about
got-
the smacked in the face bit. I remember when we first started Style Arcade, in the first couple of years, I felt as if I was daily putting on kind of like boxing gear. I would
Yeah.
just visualize it, a pad on the chest, a couple of gloves on. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Bring on anything.
That is
Yeah.
business. That is running a business, isn't it? Or that's or life, depending on how you want to. I think it can be. I think I'd say I've been doing this a little bit longer than you. I'm a lot older than you are. So, I think it's inevitable that, you're going to have some fun, shall we say. Some people say
Fun.
challenges and fun along the way, and I think you when you've had a few years of fun, if you like, you sort of get used to the knocks, and they're just sort of, you just navigate them and keep smiling.
Yeah. Now it's water off a duck's back. I mean, what have we not seen? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's good.
I guess that ties in quite nicely with we've just launched a new podcast on the show, which is called, sort of aligns with this show a little bit, but it's around building agencies, ultimately building businesses. And it's called Agency Intensive, agencyintensive.com, and we've got sort of 4 or 5 episodes out there now, but very much we talk about this side of business a lot on that podcast. The sort of dealing with the ups and downs of running a business. Yeah, I sense we could do a whole nother episode, Michaela, on this.
I think so too, Richard, because I think that's why you've had such wonderful results on that podcast, is because people are desperate for this information. This is a hard thing to do. Yeah.
It is interesting because that podcast actually is doing about 3 times the numbers of this podcast.
I'm on the wrong podcast. Yeah, but it's so good. You're giving back. People are desperate for this knowledge.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. For those that want to find out more about you, more about Style Arcade, what's the best way to do that?
Hit me up on LinkedIn, Michaela Wessels, or at stylearcade.com. We're always here to, meet new people for sure.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for having me on, Richard. Such a pleasure.
No problem at all. No problem at all. I'll see you soon.
Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.